Hello again. We continue in track 2 of Biospain 2021. And in the last panel of this morning, we are going to find out where we stand on new genomic editing techniques. To do that, we have Gerardo Pizzabarro, Professor of Microbiology and Director in the Institute for Multidisciplinary Research in Applied Biology of the Public University of Navarra, who is going to moderate this panel with the experts, Esperanza Orellana, Clara Aguilera, and Petra Lloras. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's your time.
So thank you, the organizers, to this half in-person, half virtual session. We have around 20 people in the room and looks like many more online. I'm going to introduce you the speakers today, the panelists. The first one is Esperanza Orellana. She's General Director of Agricultural Products and Markets of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. Esperanza has a degree in veterinary medicine from the Complutense University in Madrid. That, by the way, is also my alma mater. And she has an extensive experience in the fields of animal production, food promotion, rural development, and agricultural markets. Esperanza is the one that you have there with the flag, the Spanish flag, I guess, no? The second one is Clara Aguilera. She's a member of the European Parliament and Vice President of the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development of the European Parliament. Clara has been Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries of the Junta of Andalusia, and she's a member of the European Parliament since 2014. Clara is the one at the bottom of the screen, yes. And in the upper, she's Clara. And the upper left is Petra Lloras. She's Senior Manager of Plant Breeding and Innovation Advocacy at Euroseeds. Euroseeds is an association that represents the interests of those involved in research, breeding, production, and marketing of seeds for agriculture, horticultural, and ornamental plant species. Petra has a PhD in plant molecular biology from the University of Hamburg, and she has an extensive experience in advising on plant breeding industry in Germany in the fields of biotechnology, plant variety patent laws, and the regulation of new plant breeding methods. Okay, I'm Antonio Gerardo Pizzabarro. I'm Professor of Microbiology here at the Public University of Navarra and Director of the Institute for Multidisciplinary Research in Applied Biology at the Public University of Navarra. Okay. Many years ago, around 30 years ago, I moved into Germany to work in the Max Planck Institute for Plant Breeding in Cologne. But that time, the research in plant biotechnology was really like the volcano in the Canary Island now, because we were carrying the first field experiments using transgenic plants in the group of Heinz Sedlan. And in that institute, there was also another group directed by Jeff Shell that was making very important innovations in plant biotechnology. Since then, the field of plant biotechnology has evolved very much, but it has taken different paths in Europe and abroad. In the new century, the developments of the omics fields, the genomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics, and so on, has produced a new evolution, a new revolution in agrobiotechnology. Unlike the last years, the evolution of the gene editing techniques has also made a step forward in this field. The European regulation of the use of genetically modified organisms in agro-related issues has limited the industrial implementation of the first wave techniques in the European Union. Nowadays, the question is open again with the development of new approaches based on genome edition of plants, animals, and fungi. To get a perspective on the state of the art in this field, we have this panel today And I have some questions for them that I have received from different sources. I will make the questions to the panelists, and then we have some time for the audience to pose new questions. The first question is directed to all of them, and for this first question, I would ask a quite short answer, because I want just to put in frame the field. The question is, which is the current position of the European Union about the use of new genomic techniques, genome editing, for instance, in agro-industry? So this is for all you three. We have a problem with Esperanza's sound. Esperanza,
No,
wait a moment, please. Again, because we had the problem with the sound. Esperanza. No, we still have a problem.
Que le pregunte otra. ¿A otra?
Okay, Clara, they will work with your sound. Clara or Petra, could you answer the question while we are solving the problem with Esperanza? These are not the problems of the direct, are the problems of the online live. No, we have a problem with all of them.
¿Le llega alguno para que le pregunte?
Sorry?
Pero que me cierre.
Petra, could you please say something? Yeah, Petra is also speaking and we don't have sound.
Hola.
Sí, hola.
No sé si se oye.
Yes, we have sound from Clara. Clara.
Bien. Hola. ¿Se oye ahora?
Yes, sí.
Bien. Bueno, buenos días, buenas tardes ya. Muchas gracias por la invitación a Biospain, por darme la oportunidad de intervenir en este importante programa. He seguido algunos paneles muy interesantes. En cuanto a la pregunta que nos hace el moderador sobre la posición de la Comisión, bueno, yo creo que la Comisión actualmente está, según mi opinión, en la línea correcta. A finales de abril de este año, la Comisión publicó, como conocen, un estudio sobre las nuevas técnicas de edición genómica que había solicitado el Consejo. Bueno, después de este estudio y afirmaba la posición con la que yo estoy de acuerdo en el Parlamento Europeo, el estudio ha confirmado que estos productos de nuevas técnicas de edición genómica tienen un gran potencial y pueden contribuir positivamente a cumplir los objetivos del Pacto Verde Europeo en referencia a los sistemas agroalimentarios de Europa. Por lo tanto, pueden contribuir a esa sostenibilidad al mismo tiempo que abordar las inquietudes que tiene la sociedad actual. ¿Esto qué significa? Es decir, que hay una posición firme tras este estudio de la Comisión y muy especialmente de la comisaria Kyriakides de apostar por una regulación de estas nuevas
requesting
técnicas de
a
edición
regulation
genómica.
of these new gene
Y
editing
eso,
techniques.
en mi opinión,
And in my
es muy
opinion, that's
positivo.
very
Yo
positive.
creo firmemente
I
en
firmly
ella,
believe in it.
creo en la innovación y en
I
la
believe in
ciencia
innovation and
como
science
elementos sustanciales
as
para abordar
substantial
el
elements
futuro
to
de
address
nuestro
the
sistema
future of our
agroalimentario. Y
agri-food
tengo que
system.
decir
And I have to
que
say
esta posición,
that this position,
esto es lo que esperamos desde una
this is what we
mayoría,
expect
yo diría que suficiente en el Parlamento
from
Europeo,
among a sufficient
no
majority
muy
in the European
amplia, tengo que
Parliament.
decir,
It's not
porque ahí
too
también
extensive
una
because
importante oposición de
there's
algunos
also
grupos
significant
políticos
opposition by some
a
political
la
groups
regulación fuera
against
de OGMs de estas
regulations
nuevas
of these new techniques. But I think there's sufficient majority supporting this new initiative if it is addressed by the European Commission, as we hope. By chance, this week, and coinciding with this event, the Commission has launched a public consultation on this aspect, which will last 4 weeks. So I would encourage everyone following the Biospain event to participate in the public consultation on this issue of regulating and their opinion on new gene editing techniques so that we can have positive results in this public consultation, which will be followed by an impact study and then the regulations by 2023. So therefore, I'll finish here. I think that the correct position today of the Commissioner Kira Kibe and the Commission's position is, which in my opinion and my group's opinion is the adequate and correct to be committed to innovation in the future and to meet our commitments with the European Green Deal and an adequate sustainability in agri-food systems.
Okay, thank you. So, for instance, Esperanza, do you think that the European Union finally is going to take the road of scientific evidence regarding this issue, thanks to the Farm to Fork and the Green Deal programs? What's your opinion on that?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, we are confident that the current scenario is moving forward in the right direction. Of course, taking all these positions on scientific evidence and criteria, not only is to share, but also any matter for the decision-making is required. And we are confident that this approach will be fully implemented within the European Union. We are optimistic because, first of all, the studies, the conclusions of the study carried out by the European Commission are very encouraging. Reflects the need to adapt the legal framework to scientific progress, show that new breeding technologies can contribute to the development of a more sustainable agri-food systems. And during the Council of Ministers that took place last May 2021, a vast majority of member states supported the European Commission to initiate this regulatory review. Furthermore, on September 24th, this very week, the Inception Impact Assessment has been published, and in this document we have seen have been arised the problems and negative impacts of the current legislation. So we think the current context is very suitable for promoting the change. For two main reasons that I would like to underline. On one hand, to achieve the objectives of the Green Deal and its strategies, new tools like novel genomic techniques will be needed. And I would like to say that quite simply, these strategies, the Green Deal and Farm to Fork, are not a pick and choose menu. From which we can choose what we like. They are a current block of initiatives and they must be implemented together. And on the other hand, we think that the society is increasingly becoming more aware of the importance of science in providing answers to many of today's greatest global challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, just to share with us, is directed to Petra. Petra, can you comment briefly on the benefits and the safety of the new genomic editing techniques and its potential impact in agriculture and food industries? So, convince us that these are safe techniques.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I think regarding the point of safety, there's also one very important point from the Commission study, which reflects what also, let's say, the broader scientific community stated earlier, and also what the seed sector actually stated. So these kind of technologies, these new genomic techniques, as the Commission calls them, they are, let's say, very diverse. You have different techniques, and you can apply those techniques in different ways. And to be able to assess and to judge on the safety of the resulting products, you actually need to look also into how those technologies are applied. And if you and this is how many countries around the world approach this topic. So they look into how are the technologies applied, what is the outcome? Is the outcome something which is similar to what we can call conventional breeding? Or is it similar to something which we actually regulate as classical GMOs? And depending on the kind of outcome, we can also judge on the risks. And as the study from the Commission confirms, and EFSA is, some EFSA reports are part of the study, EFSA confirmed that there are outcomes of those technologies which are similar to conventional breeding and also pose similar risks as conventional breeding. And there can be outcomes which are more similar to GMOs. So you need to really look into how are the technologies applied and what kind of product do you receive, and then you can judge, is it more conventional-like and the risk is similar to a conventional breeding product, or is it more GMO-like? So that's maybe my comment on the safety. So if we now look into those products which the Commission actually will be working on, and that's targeted mutagenesis and cisgenesis, as they announced, where we clearly see it's pretty similar to conventional breeding. We can see that there are already a number of at least research projects ongoing, but also already applications which can help to make agriculture more sustainable. For example, there's a huge group of German breeding companies working on fungi-resistant wheat. So if we assume that they succeed and apply genome editing to make wheat more fungi resistant, and we would assume that those wheat cultivars will be grown in Europe only on 50% of the wheat cultivation area, we would be able to save 25 million applications of fungicides, which is very much in line, for example, with the goals of the farm to fork strategy. Another example would be pod shattering in oilseed rape production. So when the oilseeds grow on the field and they dry, they might lose their seeds, which makes up to 25% of yield loss in oilseed rape production. If we could achieve oilseed rape which is not losing its seeds anymore, so we call that pod shatter resistant, we would be able to save 500,000 hectares of additional oilseed rape production just due to saving in those production losses. Other example, drought-tolerant maize. So even with moderate drought, EU farmers lose about 3% of their yield due to drought. And if we would be able to have a drought-tolerant maize, an EU average farmer would be able to avoid profit losses of 25%. And And farmers' profit is, of course, also one aspect of sustainability, because also in the end, the farmer needs to be economically sustainable to stay into production. Another example from a different crop is grape wine, for example. Grape wine is grown on 3% of the EU agricultural area only, but is responsible for 60% of the fungicide applications. So if we could apply genome editing to grape wines, and we could save like 80 to 90% of the fungicide applications in grape wine production. So I think these are all examples which just show how the new breeding techniques, but breeding in general, also can contribute to more sustainable agricultural crop production.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Petra, still with you, you have lived the first, what I called before, the first wave of biotechnology concerning genetically modified organisms. The situation in Europe is different from the situation in the States or in Asia. We are now in the moment of starting a new technology, or this genome editing. So, and I think that besides the political positions, there is a question of teaching the communities, teaching the society, or explaining the society the benefits and the problems associated. Which would be the point that you would stress the most for explaining to the society the advantages of these new technologies in the sense of more production of food, or more environmentally friendly production, etc. So which will be for you the first point to stress, or the main point to stress, in order to convince not the politicians but the community that the society supports or gets not an anti-scientific situation, position in this field?
Yeah, I think, thanks for the question. I think that's a very important point, of course, to enter into a dialogue with society and to explain. And what we recognize is that society hardly knows about plant breeding in general. So we just, as consumers, we hardly get in touch with people doing plant breeding, and we probably don't know about it. So it's not only explaining specific technologies like new genomic techniques, but it's explaining about plant breeding and the benefits of plant breeding in general, to help people understand and to also provide context for how those technologies can be applied. And I think what people understand is that if you show the diversity of crops, and I think specifically vegetables are a nice example, because that's closer to the consumer compared to, for example, a wheat variety which will be put on the market. So explaining the diversity of different vegetables, vegetable varieties, for example, in tomatoes, the different tastes, different shapes, different colors, and that this is the basis for breeding, and this kind of breeding can be improved, can be made more efficient by applying those technologies. I think that's something which you can explain to consumers if you provide the broader context and explain why breeding in general is needed. And that's indeed our experience in Euroseeds, and that's the way how we approach our communication activities towards a broader public.
Thank you. The next question that I have here is directed to Esperanza and Clara, and the two different levels of the national and European scenario. For you, you think it is possible for the European Union to profit the benefits of these genomic techniques within the current European Union ideological and political context? Do you think that we are still on time for getting a return of these techniques in our different levels, the national and the European? Principal, this is for Esperanza and Clara.
I don't know who starts first.
The first one that
Clara,
appears
please.
on the screen. The first one appearing on the screen. Okay, Esperanza.
Bueno.
Okay. Okay, as I said before, we are confident. We think steps are being taken. So we have had the publication of the Inception Impact Assessment. Now we have a 4-week public consultation period. There we will have to move forward and to have this proposal first. All stakeholders will have the opportunity to discuss both the preliminary evaluation and the comments received during this consult that has been launched. And in this meeting that will take place in November, organized by the European Commission. And okay, there's a long path to move away. We need to go step by step, but we are confident that there will be an adoption of the legislative proposal by the Commission in the second quarter of 2023. That is the period that is coincident with the Spanish presidency of the Council. So for us, it's a very good opportunity to try and to push that issue in a quite correct time. You have mentioned the political and ideological context. It's well known that in recent years the ideological and political polarization of the European Union has led to the blocking and to the delay of authorization of certain biotech products, of course. But we hope that this will change and that the political support for the regulatory revision expressed during the Council of Agriculture Ministers last May will continue. Regarding the ideological aspects, I believe, of course, in consumers' freedom of choice, and that must be respected. But from my personal point of view, science is science, and it is not something to have an opinion about. You need, of course, information. Petra said it before. The best science, the best information to make your choice. And it's essential to improve communication to the citizens, to the consumers, of these scientific evidences on these technologies and the effect, the positive effect for more sustainable agriculture and agri-systems.
Clara, something more on that? Clara.
Sí, sí.
Okay,
sí, yo quería intervenir. Sí, estoy de acuerdo con lo que dice Esperanza, que esto debiera dejarse al margen, la ciencia al margen de debate político, a veces ideológico. Yo tengo que decir que en Europa no es así, en el Parlamento menos. Hay un fuerte debate con estos temas y con otros donde prima la estrategia política o la ideología frente al valor de la ciencia. Y yo lo lamento mucho porque creo que una sociedad avanzaría más bueno, apoyándose fundamentalmente en la ciencia con todos los respetos a la ética de las personas o la opinión personal en cuestiones ética o
ideological matters. Right now in the European Parliament, I think there is a majority, sufficient majority, as I said earlier on, that can support these initiatives. I think the Commission is on the right path, as I said. The Kyriakides Commissioner has the right response. Also, the previous Commissioner, Andrew Barclay, and I think we're on the right path. And as Esperanza said, the Council, and where there's most opposition, will probably be in the Parliament. And mainly, I have to say this clearly, the green groups or ecologists are leading an opposition to these new genomic editing techniques. And that's why they're currently outside the GMO regulations. And I think that we have to let science and innovation offer us opportunities. An example, and I'll end. Look at this. We've started again a debate on whether it's adequate or not, the use of glyphosate. For the previous use that's in force until late next year, there was a positive report by the European Food Safety Agency. So the agency should give us the scientific guarantees regarding authorization or not for certain herbicides. Despite that, the Parliament voted against the authorization of glyphosate regarding continuing with this authorization. And now we have a new debate. Again, the opinion of the agency has been asked for, but against this, there's an ideological opposition. It's very contrary to these issues. And the same is happening in parallel with the new genomic editing techniques. But I have to say, and I'll end, I think there's a sufficient majority to commit ourselves to clear regulations and to commit ourselves to innovation and science and new genomic editing techniques to offer us opportunities in the future. But we have significant opposition that can't be underestimated, and I think it's key to communicate to the public opinion all these matters that Petra referred to so that they know more. No one knows. Most people don't know what a GMO is, or what a new genomic editing technique is, or what possibilities they offer. But everybody has an opinion. So we have to clarify for consumers these issues more. It's not easy, but we will have to work on this. I believe in this. Now, at the plenary session in October, we're going to approve the Parliament's opinion on the farm-to-fork strategy, where we have one of the commitments made, which is a regulation and a specific text for new genomic editing techniques. And we hope that this commitment, along with the rest, can be approved without any difficulties, in line with what we're talking about. This will be in October, where we're going to approve this opinion by the Parliament on farm-to-fork.
Thank you. So, in the first wave of biotechnology, we were essentially out. What would be the consequences of being out also in the second wave? Petra, I would like you to tell us your opinion about which can be the impact of the current regulatory situation on the European Union sector if the implantation of these new technologies are left behind and remain just as a kind of academic. Because there is something surprising, that is, Europe in the research institutes makes a good science in plant biotechnology, but then in the industry and the actual life is not a reflection of what we do in the labs. So which would be the effect, the impact of this current regulatory situation if it is still like this?
Yes, thanks. And indeed, as you said, so I think in Europe we are very good in developing new technologies, but when it comes to applying those to generate new products, it's somehow lacking behind, and this is confirmed by a number of studies. We did some internal studies within our sector, and we asked our companies in how far the current regulatory situation affects their capacity to innovate in the field of new genomic techniques. And in fact, already 40 of the SMEs which replied to our questionnaire, and also a third of the large companies even stopped or reduced their R&D activities with new breeding techniques after the European Court of Justice ruling. So there was already a negative effect of this regulatory situation on the innovative capacity of those companies. And when we asked about the reasons, also the companies said, well, there's prohibitive costs, so long assessment and approval timelines, and all these issues linked to the current regulatory situation, which prevents them from further investing in those kind of technologies. And some companies clearly stated, so they moved their research out of Europe, or they've put their product focus on non-European markets, so which would in fact lead to a situation where Europe would lag behind developments in other parts of the world. Let me just come back to the farm to fork and the biodiversity strategy. So from all we know, and we had a study on this published earlier this year, the impact of the two studies on the current agricultural crop production would be a reduction of production by 20 to 25%. So in the past, plant breeding contributed about 66% to productivity gain in agriculture. So if we now assume we have a lack of production of around 20 to 25% by the implementation of the two strategies, plant breeding at the current pace will hardly be able to compensate for those production losses in the future. So in fact, plant breeding needs to speed up, and those new tools, those novel genomic techniques can help to plant breeding to speed up, to be more efficient, and to help also compensate potential production losses, which will be reality after the implementation of the two strategies, and only then Europe will be able to be not more dependent on imports on the one hand, but also I think we don't want to export our environmental footprint to other parts of the world by decreasing our production. So plant breeding and the new tools can really help to implement the strategies and to be more sustainable in our agricultural production in the future. Mm-hmm. But we need this enabling regulatory framework, of course.
Yeah. Do you think, this is a question for all you three, that Europe is in a position of bridge the gap with the other non-European entities, I mean the States, Americans in general, Asia, in all these technologies for the use for this population, for the normal consumer, average consumer? Or are we just behind and we have lost, I would say in Spain, lost the train of these green revolutions, let's say? This is a question for you two. Then I have a question specific for Petra, not more for Germany, but let's go first in Spain. And what's your opinion? We are just behind, or we can bridge the gap?
Okay, let me be optimistic in this question. But obviously, we are already seeing the impact for the EU of the decisions that has been taken. The Joint Research Center has published a report on the status of applications for the use and marketing of these technologies all over the world. So this report shows that more than 600 applications have been submitted, and 2 products are already authorized for marketing in the USA and in Japan. And on the other hand, the number of applications submitted in the European Union is lower, and they are at an early stage of development. So as Petra said, our industry is reluctant to move forward with this current legislative framework. So additionally, this recent inception impact assessment that has been released also offers a discouraging scenario for the European Union if the current framework is maintained. So our hope is to move forward. Is crucial to optimize these deadlines that we have been talking about. Clara has explained how is the path we have to move, and we have to go fast in this process that the Commission has opened to review the legislation as quick as possible, bearing in mind that the Commission has the intention to adopt the proposal for regulation in the second quarter of 2023. So we need debates between all different stakeholders. They have to be fruitful. We have to work hard all together, member states, parliaments, all stakeholders, to work to bring positions closer as soon as possible. And of course, it will be essential making science the basis for the decision making. Thank you.
¿Sí?
Can't hear you now. Sorry, but at least I can hear
Yo
you.
oigo ahora al moderador. Hola.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So it's better than this stuff. Okay, anything else on that, Clara? Yes, on the possibility of filling the gap with other non-European regions for the use of this technology, or are we going to be behind or out?
Well, no, I think we're not left out. Haven't been left outside, but the decisions must be soon. Well, it's quite ironic sometimes that the technique is discovered in Europe, but it is implemented outside Europe. But we have a very guarantist system, what we call the principle of precaution. This means that this principle is used and that we have a system with a lot of guarantees, something that doesn't happen in the United States, for example, where they don't have this principle of precaution, but they have another way of seeing things. And not to speak of China, where everything is quite less transparent, fewer guarantees than our European systems. So we have a democratic, transparent system that has very good things, but which, for certain decisions, it's a bit slow. But I am confident, and I also think that in Europe we have, in Spain and also in regions such as Navarra, we have a very strong agri-food industry that could benefit enormously from these technologies, adding competitiveness, and also that the European impact assessment report by the Commission says that this European Green Deal can have the effect of reducing agricultural production in Europe around 15–16%. So therefore, with these measures, reducing pesticides and other elements, we have to take measures and initiatives. We want to continue producing quality, safe products in Europe, and we want to address sustainability as an essential element, and these regulations are essential for that. That's clear. So we haven't missed the train, but beware. If we don't act soon, and soon means that we have adequate regulations in place, as Esperanza said, probably coinciding, as the Commission announced, with the semester of the Spanish presidency of the Council, so the first semester of 2023, we could be missing a lot of trains, and that's not what we want. So therefore, there are opportunities where we still have time, but let's not get distracted. So I invite all those following us again, all those listening to us at this Biospain event, to participate in the public consultation carried out by the European Commission, which is opening now for 4 weeks. If all of society offers its opinion, not just the opinion of a few, but if we have to give them all our opinions.
Now I have new batteries, and you can listen to me. One thing I feel is that in Europe, there is a conceptual focus more in the safety of the process, while in America, for instance, there is a conceptual focus on the safety of the product. And I think this is a problem, no? Because we are discussing how to do the things instead of if the product we have done is safe or not. But I said before that I'm going to make a question for Petra, and you will forgive me, but it's a little bit just focus on Germany. Germany is a country with a very strong environmentalist power, no? And there are many groups of people against all these issues. How do you feel the situation in Germany? I'm asking you as a German, as I asked before the others ask Spaniards, no? So from this other point of view, how do you feel the situation there?
Yeah, indeed. I think it's probably Germany and France where we see a strong, let's say, environmental movement and also organic movement. So I think these markets or these movements are pretty strong. Yeah, regarding the political situation, I'd say, of course, we had the elections last Sunday, and we probably have the Green Party in the German government, so which, of course, also puts probably the novel genomic techniques in a more difficult situation. On the other hand, we also have the liberals, which will be part of the government, and they are pretty technology open. So we need to see how this balances out. I think that's up to the coming months and the negotiations between the different parties. But in general, I recognize that specifically younger people, also younger people of the Green Party and the environmental movement, are more open to innovation and to technologies than maybe, let's say, the more established organic and environmental movement in Germany. So it's maybe also a generation question, and I'll hope that, let's say, this general openness to technology will in the end succeed, and that we will have a real competition between different technologies and also agricultural production systems in view of sustainability. So then we can, if we have really scientific criteria to assess technologies and production systems according to their contribution to sustainable, to a sustainable future, I think then we actually, in the end, will be able to see, yeah, in which direction we need to go, and to base this on science, I think that's really crucial.
Mm-hmm. And just one last question before going to ask the audience if they have questions. It's also for you, Petra. How is the situation, the position of the companies of seed production, the seed producers? Because I understand that Euroseeds is close to producers. So how they feel like all these technologies situation?
Yeah, Euroseeds represents the breeding sector and the seed production sector, so which is sometimes one one and the same kind of company, and sometimes it's split into different companies. But no, our position is that we are in favor of being able to use all the tools in breeding which are needed. So, I mean, also these tools are not, let's say, isolated. So they always need to be integrated into the breeding process. And our breeders, our position is we need to be able to use the best suitable tool to solve a specific problem. And yeah, our general position on the new techniques in principle is, as I said earlier, they can be applied in different ways and the outcome can be different, and you should really look into the details and not judge on a technology as such, but really assess the technology and the respective outcome and apply, let's say, appropriate regulatory oversight. Then I think we will end up in a situation that's more enabling than the situation we will see today.
Okay, thank you. Now, let's have a little bit time for questions in the audience, or I don't know if we can have questions online. We have 5 minutes. No, 5 questions. No, five something. I don't know. So there are there some questions there on the? If not, I will ask the panelists to give a short final comment on that. So there are not many hands on. So perhaps the 3 panelists can give a last conclusion, last words on the topic we have been talking about before going for lunch. So, any final comment? This is like the school. I should ask each one. Esperanza, for instance, or Clara. Okay, you're volunteer.
Bueno, a mí me gustaría hacer.
Well, I'd like to make a final comment. I'd like to say that during this debate, there's a big lie from a government, from Germany and also from France. Why do I say this? Because we're very strict with European demands, but we sign commercial agreements with third countries and we forget about this. So therefore I say we establish some environmental standards and requirements that are very significant. I don't think that's wrong, but we're very flexible with imports from third countries. Here we're very against GMOs, not me. I don't have a position contrary to them, but in the parliament or part of society, we're importing GMOs, soybeans, mainly for animal feed because we need it. Okay, so there's this big lie. Germany is a huge importer, and also France, from third countries, where they use much more pesticides and fertilizers than in the EU. What's more, pesticides that are forbidden in the EU are used in those countries. It could be South Africa, Egypt, Morocco. I don't care the place. Pesticides that are forbidden, and we're allowing that production to come in and be consumed in the EU, in its market. So therefore, there's a big, and it's good that society knows about this. If we are clear about the environmental standards, let's demand it from everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else, Esperanza? Just you have half a minute.
Just to finish, to underline that we are firmly convinced that new technologies can be key to improve sustainability and competitiveness of our agri-food sector in Spain. This sector is 10% of our GDP in our country, and it's facing big challenges in a complex scenario regarding climate change and other environmental issues. So I think Europe must promote a new system that, while maintaining the high security standards that are the hallmark of our European production model, creates a favorable environment, research and innovation, and takes advantage of the potential of these technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now your last half a minute, Petra.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, from our perspective, I think we really hope that the Commission recognizes the urgency to take this legal proposal forward and yeah, to promote innovation, and that we will in the end join the growing number of countries around the world that take a scientific approach on that. And I have hope because also some other critical countries, like for example Japan, take a reasonable approach for those new technologies. So there is hope that also the European Union will follow. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And now my half minute. Thank you everybody for being here and the organizers for setting up this interesting panel. Muchas gracias, Esperanza and Clara.
Vielen Dank, Petra. And Clara and Petra.
Now is the time for going for lunch, I think. No?
Yes, thank you, Clara, Esperanza, Petra, and of course, Gerardo. As you said, it's time for lunch, but it's been really interesting to learn with you. We make a break, and we meet at 4 o'clock. If you wish, we will learn what we'll be eating in 2030. Really interesting. We wait for you. Thanks.